Greetings, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Classic Album War. Today we're going to take a look at two gems from 1968, both from the height of the kind of psychedelic era, the kind of birth of progressive rock, okay? Two bands that kind of I guess were involved in the early days of the genre we call prog. Whether each band was what we now considered a full-blown progressive rock act is probably not that important, but they were two bands that were around right around the time of the formation of what we call prog, and they included a lot of elements in their music that we would normally associate with the genre going forward. So I think both bands very, very important to the early days and the growth of progressive rock, and I think there's plenty to love on both albums for proggers, and obviously most of you, if you've been following the prog genre for decade and decade and decade, probably love both these albums of both of these bands. So what we're talking about today is Shine On Brightly, the second album, the sophomore release from Procol Harum. Okay, and the other album is the third release from the Moody Blues, In Search of the Lost Chord. Okay, two classics, a lot of great songs on both these albums. Both of these bands were very prolific back in that time period. Okay, both of them would release either an album a year or two albums a year from 67 or so all the way through the early 70s. There's so many releases from both bands within a 5-year period. So let's take a look at one at a time here. Then I'll let you know which one's my favorite. And of course, how we always do this, let us know which one you like best. Okay, there's no right or wrong answer here, right? This is more an excuse to talk about two maybe similar albums, maybe similar bands, maybe same time period, same genre, that sort of thing. It's just an excuse to kind of look at a little closely, two really, really great albums and kind of discuss what's great about them, what's not so great about them, which ones we like better, right? No right or wrong answer here. So first one, okay, Shine On Brightly by Procol Harum. Their second album. Of course, you've got Robin Trower on guitar on those first couple of Procol Harum albums before he went to go solo. Maybe a little underutilized. It's funny when you think about Trower and his solo career, and then you go back and you listen to the albums that he appeared on with Procol Harum. You don't really hear him all that lot on these albums. You do hear him in spots, yes, but considering he would go on to, totally guitar-centric music shortly thereafter, I know a lot of people have often discussed, it's Trower's in the band, but you don't really get to hear him all that much. But his contributions are notable, right? So here we've got, opens up with Quite Rightly So, a really, really good tune, a very engaging song. This whole album, and the other one as well, really indicative of that kind of early symphonic rock style, where bands were mixing classical music with rock and orchestral sounds, and of course lots of psychedelia, right? A little bit of folk, that sort of thing. So Quite Rightly So, really engaging tune right there. The title track, Shine On Brightly, really good song. Really kind of the vocal hooks and the melodies are just right spot on there. Then of course you've got Skip Softly, Mr. Moonbeams. All right. Or sorry, My Moonbeams. I'm not wearing my glasses, and I'm not great with song titles. Let me put the glasses on. Skip Softly, My Moonbeams. That's probably one of the best examples on this album of Trower actually kind of really getting involved in the arrangement. Some really kind of cool, fuzzy guitar lines late in the song. All right, I think he was playing a Les Paul right around this time, if I'm not mistaken. Then Wish Me Well, kind of a bluesy rocker. Again, you got some Trower appearing in there. Then you've got Ramblin' On, okay. Again, that kind of classical rock thing going on strong there. Magdalene, My Regal Zonophone. Cool, quick little tune. And then, of course, you got the album centerpiece, which is In Held 'Twasn't I, which is probably, about 20 minutes long, 17, 18, something like that. Later redone by Transatlantic, very well, I might add, but another great example of that kind of long-form composition style. It was just starting to pop up with a lot of bands right around that time. Here, Procol Harum once again perfecting that whole like symphonic rock, trying to recreate orchestral sounds within the confines of a rock band. Doing a great job with it. This is a very, very good album. All the tunes are pretty damn memorable. Production is spot on. The instrumentation is great. A lot of fantastic piano and Hammond organ. Gary Brooker's just great vocals. Just a really solid album. And coming from a band who like those first handful of releases are just so good, right? Just so good. And again, the seeds of progressive rock kind of all throughout this album. As is this next one. Ironically, both of these released the same year. Okay, a lot in common, but a lot not in common. Right? So In Search of the Lost Chord from the Moody Blues. This follows the, Days of Future Past album, which was a huge hit for the band. Here you've got, Departure, quick little intro. So again, that symphonic rock thing leading into the wonderful Ride My Seesaw, which is the album's one like kind of rocker, but just a great tune with fantastic electric and acoustic guitars. The vocals are great. You got the layers of backing vocals. It's just a great kind of like driving song, right? Awesome tune. And then you got the quirky Dr. Livingston, I presume. Wonderful little tune. Then The House of Four Doors. You got that, a part 1 and a part 2. Legends of a Mind. Timothy Leary. Great tune. Really great tune. Another one of those legendary Moody Blues songs. Then, of course, I mentioned House of Four Doors, Part 2. Got the creepy Mellotron, right, going on. And this album is a lot of layers, but this is a really strong kind of British psychedelic album. All right? Just a lot of the passages, some really understated stuff on here. You got the use of the Mellotron and strings and a lot of vocals and acoustic guitars, a little bit of electric guitar. The flute, really nice stuff going on in this album. Voices in the Sky, another great tune. The Best Way to Travel. Visions of Paradise. That's a good one. The Actor, lovely little tune. Again, gotta love the layers of vocals that the Moody Blues always did so well. And then you got the last two kind of mesh into each other. The Word and Om, which has some pretty neat sitar and, it's very kind of Middle Eastern Indian feel throughout the tune. Very cool album. Arguably you could say there are better Procol Harum albums or Moody Blues albums, okay, but these obviously are two of the better ones, okay? Are each top 3 released in the Moody's? Quite possibly. Maybe not for some of you. I kind of think so, right? Or close to it. So which one do I prefer? Well, this for me, it's like a pick'em. It's like a pick'em. I probably could change my mind on a daily basis which one I like better. They're both really good. Okay, they're both really good. They're both very indicative of the time that they were released. Okay, so some might say they sound slightly dated, but you know what? Nothing wrong with that. Okay, there is something to be said. There's a charm about those late 60s albums. Okay, and these both scream late 60s, and you know what? I love them for it. All right, there's just certain pieces of music that take you back in time, whether you were old enough to experience it when they came out, or maybe just a little bit too young, but you experienced it later, but you can still kind of capture in your mind. You can kind of feel, okay, this is what it must have been like to be, 15, 16, 17 years old or whatever in 1968 and kind of, going out and buying the LP, hearing the songs on the radio, maybe going to see the band live in concert. There's something to be said about kind of getting a feel in your head about what it was like in that time period if you really couldn't experience it, live at the time. Because in 1968, I was 2 years old, so I was not listening to the Moody Blues or Procol Harum. But again, there's a lot of those albums that were released around this time period that kind of have that sound, right? That vibe. And I love it, So again, back to which one do I prefer? Like I said, I can give you a different answer every day. These are very, very close albums. There's a real charm about this album, almost like a naivety, not naive nature to this album, which I really love. Okay, it's simple, it's pleasing, it's lush. The vocal melodies are great on here. The instrumentation is understated but effective. Okay, symphonic. And then you got this, which I think is a little more of an adventurous album, maybe from a musical standpoint. not so much like maybe vocally or what have you. But you know what? I think because of In Held 'Twas an I, and quite rightly so in the title track, and maybe Skip Softly, I'm going to give the slight edge to this one today. Because tomorrow I may be like, oh, Jesus, Ride My Seesaw, Legends of a Mind. I don't know about that. So today, you know what? I'm going to go a split decision today. It warrants an immediate rematch, right? So we got 116, 114, all right? 115, 113, 115, 114. Ever so close. Tomorrow I could tell you something different. I really love both of these albums. They're both filled with wonderful music, and that's really what it's all about. You could even call this a draw. It doesn't really matter who wins. There's no loser here. Both pretty wonderful albums, and again, we could do a Procol Harum versus Moody Blues kind of battle every day. They've got so many great albums that they released right around the same time. These guys were contemporaries. So, yeah, a lot of good stuff. So, let's hear what you think, all right? Both really good albums from the early symphonic rock / prog / psych era, 1968. Procol Harum gets my vote for today, but you know what? Tomorrow I could very well go with this. Doesn't really matter. Both great albums. Both deserve our attention. If nothing else, this gives you an excuse to go out, pull them both out of your collection and play them. That's what it's all about. It's all about revisiting this great music and these great bands. That's why we do these shows, right? It's not a hotly contested competition where, what I say is right or anything like that. That's not the point here. The point here is to talk about two great albums, and reminisce about how great they are and why they're so great, why we love them so much, and then maybe go back and listen to them, right? That's what it's all about. So visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course, we're on the mighty YouTube. Don't touch that dial. We got another classic album more coming up momentarily, so stay tuned for that, and we'll see you then. All right, bye-bye.